I call Zoro my husband, and yes, part of that is because I apparently have a type. Men with swords. Give a man a sword, a personal code, and the ability to look completely unbothered during a dangerous situation, and apparently I'm already halfway there. But the real reason I love Zoro goes much deeper than that. Because even if Zoro and I were completely lost, and with his sense of direction we definitely would be, I'd still be safe. I may not trust him to get me home, but I would trust him to get me through whatever we run into along the way. That is what Zoro means to me. Security and stability. The feeling that no matter how bad things get, as long as he is still standing there, it isn't over. Zoro makes strength feel safe, and I think that feeling is the real reason I've become so attached to him. There wasn't one specific scene where Zoro suddenly became my favorite character. It happened gradually. The longer I watched One Piece, the more naturally attached I became to him. And again, yes, the swords probably helped. I've always gravitated toward anime characters who use swords. There's usually something about the way they carry themselves that appeals to me. It could be the discipline and the confidence or the personal code. They often have this quiet sense of nobility about them, even when they aren't technically noble people. And Zoro embodies so much of that. He's strong, but he doesn't spend all his time announcing how strong he is. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He doesn't need constant reassurance, and his identity doesn't change depending on who enters the room. Even when he's being nonchalant, I never feel like he's disconnected. He notices things. He understands more than he always says, and he'll act annoyed, complain, go back to sleep, and still somehow know exactly what the crew needs from him. Zoro feels like the kind of masculinity I naturally gravitate toward. Quiet, steady, disciplined, protective, and completely sure of himself. And when he enters a dangerous situation, I feel it immediately. So that's relief and excitement. Like, okay, we are still in trouble, but somebody capable just arrived. When Zoro is there, I never feel like it's over, even when he's injured. Even when the opponent is clearly pushing him further than he expected, I trust that he will keep moving forward. And that isn't only because he is powerful. There are plenty of powerful anime characters who don't make me feel safe. So Zoro makes me feel safe because he is dependable. He may be bleeding from places I'm pretty sure people should not be bleeding from, and somehow I'm still sitting there thinking, okay, he's got it. Which may not be healthy logic, but this is One Piece. We moved past healthy logic a long time ago. He doesn't make the crew's fare bigger, he becomes steadier. And that steadiness reaches me as a viewer. That is why, even if we were lost together, I'd still feel okay. One of the things I respect most about Zoro is that his loyalty to Luffy has never felt like blind obedience. He follows Luffy willingly, and he believes in him. He sees the future Pirate King in him. But Zoro never loses himself inside that loyalty. He still has his own dream, his own judgment, and his own standards. And when Luffy needs to be corrected, Zoro will correct him. The conflict surrounding Usopp is one of the clearest examples of that. Zoro understood that the situation wasn't only about whether they missed Usopp or wanted him back. Luffy was the captain. Certain boundaries had to be crossed, and if they pretended those things did not matter, then Luffy's position as captain would stop meaning anything too. That wasn't Zoro trying to control Luffy, it was Zoro respecting Luffy's role enough to expect him to live up to it. And I love that Zoro can allow someone else to lead him without feeling diminished by it. He doesn't follow Luffy because he is incapable of standing alone. He follows Luffy because he chose him. He looked at Luffy and saw something worth following, protecting, and believing in, even before either of them fully understood where this journey would take them. If someone told me there was a traitor among the Straw Hats, Zoro would genuinely be the last person I would ever expect. His chances of betraying the crew feel like zero. And of course, I have to talk about Thriller Bark. But I don't want to talk about Nothing Happened as though it is only one of Zoro's coolest moments. It is cool. Obviously, the aura was outrageous, but that isn't what makes the scene mean so much to me. Zoro accepted Luffy's pain knowing it could kill him. He took on a burden that was already unbearable for one person while carrying injuries of his own. And afterward, he didn't ask for recognition. He didn't need Luffy to know what he had done. He didn't turn his sacrifice into something the crew had to emotionally repay him for. He simply carried it. Zoro protected Luffy physically, and then he protected him from the guilt of the sacrifice too. That doesn't feel like arrogance or pride to me. It feels like love, quiet love. The kind that doesn't need a speech or a pause attached to it. Zoro does not have to tell me how deeply he cares about Luffy. That scene told me everything. Zoro's discipline is another reason he feels so dependable to me. He doesn't only tell us he wants to become the world's greatest swordsman, his entire life reflects that commitment. He trains constantly, he accepts pain, he pushes himself because his actions have to match his words. And his promise to Korona adds even more weight to that discipline. He is not carrying only his own dream. In his mind, that dream belongs to the both of them. So whenever Zoro trains, grows stronger, or refuses to give up, it feels connected to a promise he decided will shape his life. I'm not saying he's made me want to get up and start lifting weights, but his discipline still changes how I see him. I feel like some people always reduce him to strength, swords, and aura, which to be fair, he has a lot of the three, but he is softer than people admit. This scene that immediately comes to mind where Zoro ends up dealing with babies, I honestly do not remember whether it was filler, and I'm not going to pretend I do, but I do remember him looking uncomfortable and irritated, like he needed everyone to understand that this is absolutely not his responsibility, but he still helped, and that is so Zoro. He may complain, he may look annoyed, he may act like he wants no part of it, but when somebody genuinely needs him, he shows up anyway. This is where my love for Zoro becomes a little complicated, because the same selflessness that makes me feel safe with him also scares me. If I had to imagine one Straw Hat willingly giving up their life so Luffy could continue, Zoro is the person I fear would volunteer first. I don't think Zoro wants to die. He values his life, he values his dream. He has too much left that he wants to accomplish. But when the crew needs him, he has shown that he is capable of placing his own survival beneath theirs. That breaks my heart because I want him to live too. And I don't want the cost of everybody else's safety to always be Zoro absorbing more pain. Being the anchor sounds strong and it sounds dependable, but anchors carry weight. I love that he would do anything for this crew, but sometimes I need him to remember that his life matters too. This is not me predicting that Zoro is going to die. I rebuke that entirely. It is just a fear created by the way he loves people. Every Straw Hat brings something irreplaceable to this crew. Zoro brings stability, that quiet feeling that even when somebody else is overwhelmed, somebody will remain standing. That somebody will remember what matters. That somebody will be strong enough to hold the line until the rest of the crew can stand again too. That is what Zoro gives us Straw Hats. And that is what Zoro gives me as a viewer. But until next time, sail safe and stay spirited.